All right, we're rocking and rolling.
I think several of us have had a chance to listen to some discussions, and I'm sure you've read things to consider about reopening. So just to help organize our thinking, I listed a bunch of things, assuming you got the agenda, I hope.
Yep.
And so we're just free to discuss. One thing that Aaron and I, since we helped set it up, realized that we need to take down the Lenten and put away Lenten decorations that we had before everybody comes back. And I don't know what we exchange them with, but at least that's one just thing that needs to be done no matter what, regardless of all the other concerns that we have about coming back.
The stuff in the sanctuary will be really easy for anyone to take down, but the stuff in the foyer area in front of the mural, I don't have the ability to take that down. We'll need someone tall, like Theo or anyone else who's tall who can get up on a ladder.
Yeah, I can eventually take care of all that. Yeah.
Okay.
When are you looking to do?
We just need to take down the things in the narthex in the lobby and the probably message in front of the mural at this point. So, and
Well,
if we
Pastor
have
Phil-
something to replace it with, we're open to ideas for that too.
Yeah, I think that's would be a definitely conversation we need to put on the agenda, you know, just in terms of having a conversation back with Brother Monty, probably about 3 or 4, whatever it was before it was, as the pastoral search committee was having meetings with me, hey, where you're at, you know, we love to suspend the search and offer you the position. And so it was during that conversation that Brother Monty was asking if there was any concerns I had about the church. Like, hey, we want to know where you're at in terms of we're doing this pastoral search. We never even asked you, is this something you want to do? Do you have any concerns going forward? And I told him that, you know, I had very, very limited concerns going forward in terms of my role in the church and the direction of the church. But the one thing I did mention, I said we need to seriously revisit the conversation about the mural in terms of the conversation that Pastor Ryan started back, as far as just does it still represent who we are? And not to throw Brother Monty underneath the bus, but I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind me sharing this. You know, he was saying, as someone who's been around for a long time, he thought it had served its purpose, you know, and that we needed to move into a different direction. You know, in terms of what would be something that's more reflective of where we're trying to go. And we tabled that discussion because I had, it wasn't as high on my priority list, but it is something that's still in the back of my mind whenever I think about who we say we're trying to be in terms of a multicultural church and a church that's welcoming to all. I do hear from a lot of my people in my circle who are Black, who, when I'm telling them about the church, and I try to describe, you know, where the church is at, they would say, oh, the church with the big white mural, you know, how is that working out? You know, and it's that's always a reminder to me that to a large population in our circle, that is a point of a sore spot, you know, so to speak, I guess, for lack of better words. And I know I've tried to not come in and make radical changes. That was one of the things. I heard Pastor Ryan came in and made a whole bunch of radical changes, you know, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to repeat that. But at the same time, I think long-term / short-term, that's a conversation we need to revisit in terms of where we all stand on that. You know, I don't want to be the end all be all, but I do sense that in terms of where we're going, it would speak volumes in terms of what we're trying to communicate in terms of diversity and things of that nature. And so, and I only bring it up since we were saying, well, what do we replace it with in terms of short term, or we leave it, you know, what's the next theme if we're going to put something up there? You know, we keep putting things up there, but sooner or later we need to have that conversation about, you know, I think there's something about covering something up that speaks volumes, you know, and God eventually says, well, you can only cover something up so much, you know, for our sin offerings. After a while, there needs to be something that covered it, you know, where you don't got to keep covering something up. And I'm not saying that's why we were covering up. We were covering up for other different reasons. But there are lots of people, myself included, that when it does get covered up, it's kind of like it's covered up, you know. And so I don't want there to be a. I just rather speak honestly about that versus just saying, well, since it's covered up, that buys me some time because it's covered up. And I can't speak for other people who feel that way. I'll give them the opportunity to do that. I don't do that. Bring up Brother Monty just to say that that was an official conversation we had, and the conversation literally lasted like 45 seconds because I said something. He looked at it. He looked at the mirror and was like, "Yeah, I think it's that time." You know, and so this is coming from one of our older white brothers, and I was actually shocked that he said that. He was saying, based upon why we originally did it and based upon where we're going, let's figure out a way to honor it, decommission it, maybe put it in a museum, maybe have a place where we go back and get the old replica of the missionary map that used to be on the back of the wall, see if we can recreate that and have archives of all these things that have been part of our history, but then start figuring out what's the next reiteration of that. And so I'm just thinking, especially where we're at in our country, my thing is, the one thing I have heard, I haven't heard anything as far as return date, which doesn't mean anything. I mean, maybe y'all have heard something. One thing I have heard clearly, return, we're not coming back to pick up where we left off. We're not church, and this is for the universal church. Hopefully the universal church gets this message, but I know for us, there was a reason why, when you look in the Bible, these things happen all the time throughout cycles. And it's not to say God causes them, but normally God will use them to get his church back focused. It's always about his people. He wants to win new people to him and have the world repent, the church to repent, the body of Christ to repent. And just to get focused on how we suddenly just get seduced and we get comfortable and we get complacent. So I think this was a shock to our system in terms of who we need to be and who we need to be going forward. And so I'm wondering, just visually and aesthetically and wording wise and but more importantly, behavior wise, what things do we do that mark that we got the picture, Lord, that we got the message, Lord? This wasn't a simple vacation for us. It wasn't a hiatus for us. We were just in a different location, getting regrouped, getting refocused, and how do we return back more focused than ever, more stronger than ever, more loving than ever, more engaged in the community, which is something that's going to be vital to our growth. Hopefully this is giving us the opportunity to engage our community, our circles a bit more, and how can we continue that when we go back? And so I know that's a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't on the agenda, but I think it's all relevant to this conversation of when are we coming back. I think more important than the when is the how we come back. How do we come back? Because I think that gives us more clarity, because God will speed up the when. because he's like, well, the win can happen a lot quicker if everyone. So in Pentecost, it happened once everyone was on one accord. It happened until God's people get on one accord and get the message that He wants them to have, and then he's catapulted. And so my fear is that we need to get the message, and then once we return, we won't have the stop and go. We can start to just go, even if the going is slow, and then progress from there. Those are just my thoughts. I know it's a lot of stuff. But we've had a lot of time on our hands to pray and think and come up with a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Any responses to any of that?
Okay. Can you hear me? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, sorry I'm late.
That's all right.
Okay. Okay, I heard what Theo said, and I've been in our church for since I've been in this country. So with the mural, the more I've learned about our history, about me coming here, it never used to affect me anyhow or anything. But the more I understand how to be integrated in the community, in our church community, or to be integrated with some with people, if the mural is something which is hindering our progress in our faith, I think it's something we need to think about. Archiving is not a bad thing to make history. Also, it's like remodeling your house to be better, so you can serve more. So it's like you remodel your house to sell and make a big price. But I'm not making like that for God. But I think if we come in unity and think about it, and think about our brothers and sisters we want to serve, to think about the community we want to serve. If that is a hindrance, is it worth to hinder the gospel with a mural? Is a mural God? Is a mural God? So I think we have to think deeply. You know, if we can archive it, make it history, make a new face for the church. We already made a new in our we've already made a new sign for the whole for the whole of our church. So we can do that. I'm for it. So, but everybody have to be on board on this. It's very touchy, but I think it's very important. Yeah, I'm putting it with my late language. I understand. It's not that we're not liking it, but we are rebranding. We are getting better. We are getting better to be better people to serve God. It's like sacrifices. There's so much me I've sacrificed to be in this country. So, and I love our church. I could be gone a long time ago, but I love the people. I love our church. I want us to be better. That's my simple message.
I think one of the biggest hangups with the mural is the fact that it was made by, oh gosh, what is his name? Or
Wildman's
yes, I mean, who has a lot of history to the congregation. I think if it was just like some random mural that was put in, it wouldn't be nearly as big of an issue. But I think it's not just a matter of like the fact that, okay, Jesus and the disciples in that mural are white, but it's like also that's a part of the denomination because of how involved he was. So I want to make sure, like, if we decide to remove the mural, like as someone who, like, I'm big into history, in history preservation, I want to make sure that that mural is, well taken care of and, has a good home because it is a part of our denomination history. That makes sense. So.
Makes a lot of sense. It's interesting you say that. When I was at Midwinter, I was at a workshop on interim pastors, and this conversation came up, because one of the big struggles of interim pastors was, and I was basically listening since I'm as much as I can, and they were just talking about some of the things that maybe when they went in were things that had been there. And normally like music, like certain churches, here's the music. To change that music was a struggle, or artwork, and so that came up. And interesting, one of the white pastors was saying that he knows someone, but that's what they do. They travel around and find Warner Solomon, I think that's his name, Warner Solomon Work Covenant, to catalog, whether it's to make sure it's placed right home or there's a museum. This whoever this guy is, that's what he does. He just travels around and praises Warren Solomon and does all that good stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. I remember talking to Sister back when Ryan's, this would have been like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I don't know if you remember Sister Bev, maybe even Aaron. And I'm trying to think of who would come to the Bible study. So maybe Joe or Bev, when Ryan was doing that series on who do you say I am? And it was like showing a different interpretations of Christ, in terms of his face. And it was during one of those meetings when I was learning more about the history, and Sister Betty was saying that she personally knew the guy. She knew Warner Solomon, and she remembered when he was commissioned to do the painting. And at that time, Melinda was still at our church, and she was saying that whenever she walks in and sees it, just doesn't sit well with her. And that was the first time Sister Betty was saying she had never heard someone in the congregation say that. And she, to be honest, the painting is personal to me. I know the guy who painted it. I was around when he painted it. But if y'all are saying that this is a hindrance, then what's the issue? We move. If this is a hindrance from where we're going, this is something that we should do. And this is coming from someone who personally knew him. But one thing, and I told Sister Betty, one thing I value about her is that if someone brought something to her attention in terms of what is a hindrance to the gospel, in her mind, well, if there's something that hinders the gospel, well, then this isn't a conversation. We remove those things, whatever that may be. And I'm not saying it should be a clear-cut conversation, because I know it's whenever you're talking about history, it's not a clear-cut conversation. But the good thing is, I find solace in the fact that I didn't start the conversation as the Black pastor who came in. I find solace that I walked in on this conversation. That Pastor Ryan and had started this, and it wasn't at my behest. I think it may have been a conversation that Melinda said. And we had a board, we had a leadership meeting that Bev would remember. Aaron, I can't remember have you been on the whole time I've been on?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so it was back when Brother Ken was around, and we had a spirited conversation in the back. And he was like, well, I never saw it that way. And so these are some ongoing conversations. And all I'm simply saying is we should seriously revisit those conversations, just because I do think that in today's age, the message that we send by keeping it is not necessarily a bad message. I will say that. I don't think we lose a whole lot by keeping it. I think we gain a whole lot by changing it, if that makes sense. So there's certain things in life where you don't get a lot by doing something good, but you may lose a lot if you don't, or it's always not equal. So I think what we would lose by keeping it is minimal. What we would gain by changing it to something more inclusive, I think is exponential. Just something to keep in mind. But Brother Mark, you're quiet. We haven't heard from Brother Eric. And so this is a part of the conversation, but this is part of a bigger conversation in terms of what you sense God has, been doing in our church and in terms of moving forward. This is just a small sliver of that conversation.
Right. I personally would like to see it moved, but again, that's just my personal feeling. And again, we should be able to do something to preserve it. I don't know how we would do that, but I think that's I think that's reasonable. I don't think that's unreasonable. And I think we should consider what we would put up in its place, whether we just do like we're doing now and just have it nothing, and then just do like displays, or we can change displays for the seasons and stuff. I mean, that's not to say just paint it over. Or have a blank wall there, but we could do so much more if we didn't have a mural there, whereas we could do different things for different seasons of the year and change it periodically. So, and that's just my opinion. I mean, I really haven't given it a lot of thought, honestly. But I think the time has come to maybe move that or replace it or whatever, however we want to do it. And I think we should try to preserve it if possible. That's it.
Is there a room in the basement that like has all the historical documents and stuff? Was I wrong in thinking that?
No, yes, in I've put a whole lot of the old documents. We've got documents from the founding in 1888 and on up. I've got them in archival boxes down in the room off the fellowship hall that's in archival boxes. Plus there's more in the back room in the addition in file cabinets too. That's not as well organized yet anyway, and we have taken down all the portraits that were around, and they're in that room down off the fellowship hall also.
Okay. I was just thinking if we needed a place for that to go, that would, what?
I said it's a big mural.
I know, and I don't know what the size of the room is, but like, I don't know, it was just a thought. If we don't have a place for that mural to go. I have no idea how you take down and install a mural. I have no idea how that works.
Yeah.
What about the back of the office?
Back of the office?
Yeah.
In the fireside
Back
room.
of fireside.
It's not enough space.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's.
I don't think that's big enough.
I don't know if y'all know how big that mural is big.
Yeah, huge.
We probably should take measurements of that just so we know like whether we replace it or not. If we have to come up.
That front wall is taller than any other wall in the church. I think I'm pretty sure. Besides the back side of it, of course. But I don't think there's another room in the church that has that high of a wall. And it's not something where we have to come up with a full plan. One thing I would say I was thinking about, because I'm big on preserving history too, and I'm also big on storytelling. So if this was something that we would do down the road, I think it'd be cool to do a video documentary of how the mural came apart. I mean, how the mural came about in the first place, the conversations that we had in terms of maybe moving on from it, and then documenting the conversations we have in terms of what we replace it with. Because when I was at the retreat, the African American Association, Ministers Association for the Black Covenant Pastors, this came up in one of the sessions, because it's actually a conversation that's going on in several churches in terms of Black pastors who became pastors at predominantly white churches, or even and you'd be surprised in some historically Black congregations who still have white murals. This is an ongoing conversation. And I was like, well, if there's no resources out there about this conversation, maybe someone needs to create a resource that says how's the best way to handle these situations, honor the past, honor the people who were around, honor the new people. But if it's something we would do, I would love to have someone come document the whole process that we can then make available to the covenant as a resource. So it archives it, keeps the history, but it also serves as a resource of how to have a biblically based, peaceful conversation about these type of issues, whether it's music or images that you want to honor, but also want to move on. How does that look? I think that would be, and then we have a night where we invite people from the community who know about the because that's what a lot of people know the church because of that. Oh, I drive past it, that church. So imagine having a night where we show the documentary and talk about some of the painful process of working through what to do and what not to do in terms of it, because I was fascinated hearing Dorothy Melander talk about how before the mural, they had other artwork that was the artwork and it was sacred and no one said, don't touch it. And then the young people says, well, yeah, that's great, but does it represent who we are now? And then that started the conversation to commission Warner Solomon to replace it. And now what we have now is the sacred thing. And so those conversations always take place in cycles. And so I was fascinated to hear that it was those conversations 50, 60 years ago, whatever, that led to that mural, 60 years ago that led to this mural. I heard that, I was like, so this isn't a new conversation. That's great history to know that there used to be artwork that the young people eventually said, we honor this old thing, but where we're at now and where we're going, we need something more vibrant, something more colorful, that this wasn't as dark as the other one. And it's the same conversation now. Where we're going now, we don't necessarily need something more colorful. Well, actually probably need something more colorful, quote unquote, from a diversity standpoint, or no images at all. I'm not a big fan on images, maybe some wording, some scripture doesn't change. And so I just thought that was a fascinating historical conversation that we could document. And I think it'd make for a great documentary or a history lesson in terms of our particular church.
Well, I appreciate the concern for sensitivity to the process and honoring the past, and I think it needs to be presented to the congregation when we do sensitively like this, and with input, and probably slowly, and just so people can understand where we're coming from. I think what upset some people earlier on when we were changing things is stuff would just disappear, like some of the altar furniture and thing, it was there one Sunday, it was gone the next, and there was no seeming understanding of why it was there and why it was gone. And so I think it's important. The process is very important, and the realization that people are doing this with concern and not just, well, that's old, so we're gonna get rid of it kind of attitude.
Yeah, we learned from our predecessors. I heard about all those stories. I made a note to self,
Yeah.
not be that type of person where I just come in and, so I've actually erred on the opposite side of maybe just treading so lightly to where nothing gets done, you know? So it's like,
Yeah.
and so I think the timing, I think is just, I've been preaching that there's something different about this time we're in. There's something different in terms of fatigue. There's something different in terms of just people are just hungry for something different, and a genuine expression of God's love and a genuine expression of the church being the church. So I'm just looking in terms of what would hinder, whether fair or unfair, some of those expressions. And so, but I don't want to sidetrack us any longer on that conversation. There's just something to get that conversation started. So I know we have lots of other more timely things to discuss.
Pastor Theo, you said you'd had some thoughts about reopening. Did you want to start, or where do we start?
Well, I'll just say this, that probably about 3 weeks ago, I was praying. I've been praying for this whole situation since we've left, and trying to have, I mean, because we are a leadership team, but then I think there is another weighty responsibility added on me as the pastor. And I was talking to Brother Kendall just how serious I take this weighty responsibility as being someone who shepherds a flock. Yeah, to the point that where sometimes if you knew what you were getting into, you would never become a shepherd of a flock, because it's like, it's just such a weighty responsibility, literally, and with this in particular, because decisions we make have real world ramifications in terms of someone's health and things of that nature. And then living with someone who, we haven't had it. We've only people been in our house in the last 3 months is the air conditioning people. We had no choice. We had to get the air conditioning fixed, and that's been it. Because of Nicole's health. And so I was praying, I was like, Lord, I need to hear clearly, I need to have some clear direction. And I tell you, when I heard it as clear as day, in terms of where, I have not heard anything in terms of when we should return. What I did hear clearly was, and I always root things in terms of our church in light of when Brother Monty always reminds us of that prophetic word that came to the church long before I got there, in Jeremiah, Jeremiah 29:11. And as I've preached several times before, we can't just take that verse out of the context of God has all these prosperous plans for us. It's, here's what happened. The children of Israel got off track. God allowed them to be put into captivity. While they were in captivity, originally they were off track while still in captivity. And then Jeremiah said, you're still not getting it. You're still listening to false prophets. You're still doing all these things. Get right with God. Make yourself at home. Don't diminish. So they actually grew in number while they were in captivity. And they grew in wealth while they were in captivity. When they returned with larger numbers and with all the resources they needed to rebuild everything that had been destroyed. So I was praying one day, and I clearly heard God said, not when we're coming back, but what I heard was where we are at in light of that prophecy. We are in the captivity portion of that prophecy. And I know there's people who've been at the church a long time who would have loved that part had already passed. The captivity part had already passed. And we were entering into, I know the plans I have for you part. I clearly heard that we are in the captivity part where God is really wanting to deal with his people in terms of how we've gotten off track, how we've lost focus, how we have made idols out of so many things, including the church. We've elevated church, and we've elevated Sunday service, and we've elevated all these rituals over God himself, and not maliciously. It's just what happens when you have religion. We start to put more stock in the religion than we do in the person who the religion was supposed to be about. And so what that means for us, I don't know in terms of when we return, but what I do know is what we should be doing right now. What we should be focusing on right now is each individual saying, Lord, what are the things I need to be practicing? And what are the things I need to stop practicing before we return? And so when I preached that message that he was telling Jeremiah, when he called the prophet Jeremiah, he says, I want you to uproot, tear down, destroy, and then we're going to replant and rebuild. I think we're in that process where God is uprooting his church in terms of what we've made church out to be, in terms of what we have not done. So I think about people who I've heard from at the church who says that there's a sense of cliques, or there's a sense of factions, or a sense of not fully feeling welcome. This is at our church specifically, and I won't share who shared these things. Well, this is a time for us to work on all those things. Work on what it means to be the church. Are we reaching out to our neighbors? Have we been calling the members of our church? Have we been calling people who used to go to our church who don't go? Are we reaching out to our coworkers? Are we doing all those things? Are we loving our neighbors as ourselves? As we be the church, I think it's going to speed up the process of us returning to the church. Because I don't think God wants to put new wine in old wineskins, to put new wine in new wineskins. So the challenge I would say to us is, what are we doing now to show that we have taken advantage of this time away from the four walls to actually be the church, to do what the church is supposed to do? That way, when we go back to the four walls, we're operating in a way where we don't fall back into the mundane ritual. Here's what church looks like. And then when people come in, they feel and sense that here's a church that has, who's getting it right. A church where I feel the love, a church that is dealing with social issues, a church that is dealing with in the community, doing all those things that we hadn't had enough time to get around to because we were so focused on survival mode. And so in that Jeremiah, the one thing that, and this is the last thing I'll share, the one thing that really stood out to me is he says that while you're in captivity, if you do these things that you're supposed to do, which is to pray for those around you, to minister to those around you, and to grow among yourselves, he says, don't worry, you will not diminish during this time. You won't dwindle, you won't diminish, you won't die during this time. You're actually going to prosper during this time. And that gave me solace, because the one thing that was driving me to say, we got to come back soon, in my mind was fear of if we lose people, which is a natural fear, and it's something we need to consider. But God was also saying to the children while they were in captivity, you're not going to lose people. You're going to gain people. You're going to grow. You're going to prosper in captivity. And literally numerically, there were way more who returned back to Israel than who went into captivity, because they also grew in Babylon. So right now we all have our circles that we should be growing in, our neighbors, the people who we're around, that we should be living our lives in such a way that they say, wow. And I've had some people just this last week say, when are y'all returning back to the sanctuary? Go to our church. Let me know when y'all return back, because I'd love to come check y'all out. Because of not putting the church on hold, but expanding what it means to be the church, we should all return back, not empty-handed. They didn't return back empty-handed from the Babylonian. They came back with all the resources. We should return back with people, resources to do this thing the right way. And so that's what I clearly heard. Now, what does that mean in terms of a date? I have not heard anything. That's where we as a leadership team come in and weighing what the health community is saying, what the numbers are saying, looking at those surveys, what the surveys have said, which is, been clear, but not as clear. I've been talking to other pastor friends of mine in the area. Most haven't returned back. Some probably have returned back. So I haven't heard anything in terms of what that's been like. I know I was talking to my neighbor across the street there, I think at Vineyard. I think it's a church called Vineyard. And he said they returned maybe 3 weeks ago. And he said a lot of people didn't come back right away. He said 2 weeks after return, he came and they were practicing. It was up and down in terms of who was practicing social distance and who wasn't. But he was saying that he was practicing social distance in terms of not taking the bulletin, not hugging, not shaking hands. The thing that really stood out to me was he said he was just uncomfortable throughout the whole service. That he was there, but he wasn't there. And you can't control that in anyone, but I think that would be a hindrance if people can't be comfortable. Someone coughs or sneezes, and even me, I don't know if I would be totally comfortable. And it's one thing to live by faith, but we're talking about, I would never say the person who was uncomfortable doesn't have faith. You're not going to hear me say that. I'm like, no, I understand that uncomfortableness, if there's a such word. And so it's a lot of stuff to weigh in terms of when do we return, how we return, and when we return, will you have people who are there physically, but who aren't there in the other senses of the world because of the worry and the discomfort, and will they be able to get out of the service what they need to get out if they are getting in, counting down the time to when they get to leave because of just being uncomfortable, rightfully so. Those are my thoughts. And I would love to hear from the people in our congregation who are in the profession. What are they seeing? Are they seeing decline? Are they seeing a rise? Is it stable? I defer to the people who, there's so many unknowns. I would love to hear from like maybe Joan and Sister Ruth and Tayo and Karen and Sharon and others who have some insights that we don't have insights in terms of that.
Okay, we had a meeting last week at my workplace, and there's a big rise. It's really rising right now, and our elderly community is more affected, and it's very concerning to me for the people like my age and older. They are in that danger. But our county is in really rise more this week. From last week, we have more in statistics. My workplace, we're not opening for anybody right now. We're not opening because we care about the people we take care of. We don't have anything. I thank God right now we are clear. We are clear right now, and we thank God for that. So I've been praying God. I also want to go back to church. but the social distancing will be very, very hard because there are people who will not think of social distancing in their mind. Like, I don't want to touch you. Like for me, I don't want really to be touching people right now because I work in a very, very tight place. And we're not saying we are safe because we still have employees going home, coming back. We don't know what they are doing. And they could bring it back to the community we are working for. So to say with our church, for me, it's so hard to. With me personally, I would still hold off because we are having so much rising right now. But if we practice real social distancing, we can do it. But will the people practice real social distancing? Will we be 6 feet apart, with our hallway, or we can do it in the sanctuary? What about when we come out on the hallway? Can we be 3? Do you have enough space? So how do we do that? We have to do mapping before we even start thinking of going back. So how are we doing that? So that's my that's all I can say for right now.
I tried.
Nope, you can go, Aaron. I was going to ask
Okay.
about Tayo, but you can go.
Okay. I checked the Indiana. Indiana has a good dashboard for statistics on COVID-19, and you can limit it by like specific counties and everything. And we tend to go up and down in terms of spikes. I think it just kind of depends on the day of the week. But I think we are in a better place than other counties like Elkhart. Elkhart is having a really rough time right now. But I would I think, yes, we want to be the church outside of the 4 walls and everything, but we are still designed to worship and be in community with each other. But we have to figure out how to do that in a safe way. And I don't know if we want to revisit the possibility of trying to do an outside service, taking advantage of the fact that it's summer, it's nice outside. It can be hot and sunny, we have to worry about that. But whether it's like we're in our cars or we meet at like the park next door, just so we can actually physically see each other and worship a community, but also social distancing. I'll have to see if I can. I sent out like those pictures and everything of the survey. There was 2 more people I think that did the Google form after I sent it to you. Plus, there's the paper ones. And honestly, I forgot to take the time to. What I meant to do was to actually physically fill the Google form out for those people, and I didn't. But it seems like, looking at the responses that I have, 92% said that they're going to wear a face mask, and 92% said that they're going to practice social distancing, and 83% said they're going to avoid shaking hands. 88% said they're going to bring or use hand sanitizer. So it seems like the people who are ready to come back want to do it safely, because when you looked at the amount, or like the percentages of who is going to return, well, about 30% said they're going to wait several additional weeks before they return. Again, this was last month. 50% said I will return at the first opportunity, but with some concerns and precautions. And only 8% said I'm going to return the first opportunity we have. Yay! I think most people are aware we got to do this cautiously because we care about our community members.
Yeah, if people were open to I'm not a big fan of the in the car one, but if we could get a tent, that to me would change the game in terms of my thinking. Because one, when you're in the open air, I'm assuming, I don't know how COVID works, but I'm assuming everything is a lot better in the open air unless you're talking about allergies. So all of a sudden now you have a different level of space in terms of, because in the sanctuary, no matter how big your sanctuary is, it's still confined by 4 walls, whereas outside you can literally distance, and then with the air, and I mean, so to me, that would change the game. And I think it would still give us some visibility in the outside community. So it's kind of in line with letting the community know that we're back open, but then also being able to minister to the community because they are able to hear the singing or the word, whatever that goes forth. So to me, if there was a way to get like a big tent, you know, go back to the open air meeting type thing, to me, that would change the game in terms of comfort level. I just think people, I mean, because like Nicole and I, when we did have company, we was outside. And when Gary Dobbins invited us over for dinner, we was like, well, we'll come outside, you know? And so I think there's something mentally about being outside, whether it works or not, I think would put people more at ease.
Yeah. I mean, being outside, you still have to practice social distancing, but like with the circulation of the air, if there are COVID-19 germs, it will not dissipate faster, but it, you know, it moves kind of all around and can, I don't know, Joe may be able to explain it more, but I think when you're inside and the air is more stagnant, and then it circulates through the air conditioner and, you know, moves around. And so I think open air is safer, but we still have to enforce, like, you know, 6 feet apart between rows and things like that. Now, in terms of getting a tent, you know, I know of rental places, but they're expensive because usually you rent a tent for like a day, not for months. So I don't know how that works in long term.
And I was just thinking it's a tent just from the sun.
Yeah.
If it's not a 90-degree day, we good. I'm just thinking about if it's 90-something degrees. Ooh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah. And for people who, like, even if my hair pulled back, my head will get sunburnt. So I'd be wearing a hat.
Yeah, so maybe that's something we should seriously, because I'm not on, I know you mentioned, I know on the survey, the car, I mean, because that's the one we're doing right now, which just seems, I mean, I get it, but you're still insulated from people. You still can't see them the same way. I think people may be more amicable to an open air meeting, you know, and it's something that we talked about doing anyway. And the only time I've heard it's been done recently was when there was a power outage. So it kind of gets us out, once again, gets us out thinking about reimagining what that, you know, what church looks like. And so to me, I think, I would think that's a win-win situation. Senator Nicole mentioned, you know, are people open to an outdoor? I was like, well, they're not open to the car one, but maybe it's a strictly outdoor one. That's something to pull off.
Do you know if we can rent Bame Park? Like, I'm thinking about, like, if we did it in our parking lot, it'd be hard to figure out where people park versus where to have the service. But if we could, like, rent the park, and honestly, I've not spent a lot of time in Bame Park, like, at all, so I don't even know what is available. Like, I know there's a lot of courts, athletic courts, but I don't know if there's a little, oh gosh, what am I thinking of?
It seems like there's I don't know if there's like pavilions or anything like that.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can look that up right now.
I know there's grassy areas. I've never been in that park at all.
There's no pavilion, but there's a nice treed area between Edison and Kepler or whatever is behind it. And there's a small playground there too. But there's no, excuse me, there's no covering. And I don't know about parking near the treed area, you know, as opposed to where the courts are. I don't know if there's, I don't know if that's, I guess that's still a South Bend Park. I don't know if there are restrictions on gatherings, you know, if you have to rent or.
One of us would have to call South Bend Parks Department and inquire. I don't know how that process works. Looking at their website, they do have a couple ADA accessible bathrooms. I don't know if those are actually open though right now. I think under step 4, level 4 of the reopening plan, like, playgrounds are open now technically. So I would assume that the bathrooms are.
And unless they're new, I'm not real sure where they are. We had that Cub camp there a couple years ago, and I don't remember restrooms being there, but they've done a lot of redoing of the park, so maybe they're
Yes, they
new.
have. Yeah.
Or maybe they're just about the soccer field.
And they don't show like a map of the park on their website, unfortunately. Unless I'm missing it, that'd be helpful. But we would have to inquire to see even if we would be allowed to have a church service out there. And what would that look like? You know, what would you do for chairs? Does everyone bring long chairs and things like that? Sound equipment. Do we have a portable sound system?
Nicole and I have one. I mean, but if worse comes to worse, I mean, there's literally like 80 something parking spots in our spots at our church. We normally take up 30 to 40, if that, on any given Sunday. And so if everyone parked behind and then down where people come in at not the normal entrance, but the backside, I think there's still plenty of parking, and because you don't know what the turnout's going to be like anyway. And so if it's not, say if it's 30 people that show up, which would be
good,
blowing, you know. I think we could definitely, you know, just put out the chairs. Would need a huge tent then, and even if it was, I know when we did the African day, we had 4 or 5 of the medium tents. So even if it was like some of those spread out, it don't have to be one big huge circus tent, because it's mainly for shade reasons. So maybe there's people who have, and I can't remember who had donated those. Was it you, Beth?
Amanda has one, and I have one that I can borrow.
And I'm pretty sure if maybe we put the word out, there's ways to get those, because then that would be the most convenient, because then you're just taking cheers from there to here. You're running the chorus from there to there. The park looks better in terms of, you know, everyone wants to be outside. You wouldn't be at the park. But I think the convenience of having it at our church, and then maybe being able to attract people across the street. Melissa in Dallas, and I've been keeping in contact with them. And then there's a person who I met years ago at this restaurant who I just realized works across. So there's the ways we could actually parlay this into an awesome opportunity to really reach out to the community. And then, you know, maybe one of the Sundays fire up the grill, and on the way out, people can grab hot dogs and hamburgers, you know, something like that, where it's almost like a really welcoming thing to the community while still practicing social distance. I think that would be a easier transition to coming back if we started in a place that's safe as possible outside. I think it would put people at ease. It put me at ease as the pastor. And then as we hear more transition, and even thinking in terms of long term, because one of the reasons why Bethel and Notre Dame, the reason why we're on this new calendar is for fear that come November, December, there may be a greater wave because of the winter flu season. And so regardless of what we do, we need to also have a plan in terms of if we have to stop and go, what's the plan come wintertime? Because of course you're not doing an outdoor service in winter. And so we have to figure out just being proactive, not to get caught off guard. So whatever plan we develop, we're gonna make sure we develop a, from July till April type plan, you know, in terms of what we do. And so, but I would love the outdoor. I like the outdoor idea to me. I mean, that just makes sense.
I was just gonna say, depending on how long we intend to do this, and I'm just asking because I know there's a lot that goes into it. Instead of renting, is it okay for us to also look into investing in getting a tent? Can you hear me?
I was waving at Michael. Michael was in the background waving, so I'm just kind of,
Oh,
just trying to.
Yeah,
Tell
that's
them,
what I was.
tell them to come into the camera. We haven't seen him in a long time. Tell them to come into the camera.
Oh yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
Hi, Michael.
Oh, he's like grown man. Look at him, a grown man.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Sherry says hello.
you. Okay. Sherry says
Sherry.
hello. Say hi.
He waved at you.
All
So
right.
you were saying instead of renting, probably investing in.
So I don't know the possibility of looking into that. I know it's all again spending money, but rather than renting, if we're going to be doing that, and like I said, depending on how long, it might be worth looking into it. Even though I know there are also concerns about setup and all that stuff. But that's just an idea I was thinking about if we're going to do outdoor, depending on how long we're going to be doing that.
I'm just looking at Amazon. I have no idea about quality or setup, because when you're setting up a tent, it's much easier to set it up in grass than it is on concrete because of the stakes. But I just typed in party tent on Amazon. I found like a 32 by 16 foot one for $660.
Hmm.
And I don't know how many people that would see, but 32 feet seems pretty long.
Hmm.
But 16 feet is not all that wide.
And who's to know? There has to be some type of grant. I mean, it's like trying to do church well grant. Center for, well, yeah. I mean, so think about. I know the Center for Congregation has like another grant too. So there's things out there that maybe we can, because the whole idea is what they're really focusing on is how to help churches do church well right now. How to do it safe.
Can a big tent like that, I'm just asking because I don't have any experience with them, can that be just held down with sandbags? Because we're not going to want to put holes in the new.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's what I'm wondering about.
But they do have the tents that are similar to the one, like the mediums that we set up for the African thing. Those are the ones that the way they're made at the bottom, there's these things that kind of like just help it so it doesn't, so they don't go down into the ground. It's kind of like,
Right, but I will tell you though, it was really windy that day, and we really struggled to keep some of those tents in place. The one where Linda had all of her items, like
yeah,
I was
do
pulling
remember
out
that. I do remember
hymnals,
that.
and it was a big issue with stuff blowing away, and that tent was having issues. So we would have to figure out a really safe way to keep that tent down, because I can just envision seeing 30 people under tents, and all of a sudden like tents going away and people getting hurt. So yeah, I mean, we may have to try it without a tent just to see, even if it is possible, or maybe just having a tent up front for people who are singing or talking, and people bring lawn chairs and hats and they get themselves a little tan while they're at church. I don't know.
Yeah, as long as if it's not 85 and up, I think we're
right.
It's just those days, and you can always bring personal umbrellas, personal items to it. Be mindful in terms of the length of the services. I'm thinking these earlier services is more, because really the real benefit of the service is each other. That's the whole idea. And so it's not, we've been getting prayers, we've been getting the message. What we have been getting is the face-to-face time. So we can always play it by ear those days in terms of if it's just unbearable, what to do in terms of not keeping people out there too long. But the whole idea is just for everyone to know that we are working our way back, and we are wanting to make sure we're connecting with everyone. And so
I was talking with my mother-in-law, and she was saying that her church, I don't know how long the services normally are, but she said that it's very short. She said 40 minutes tops. there's no congregational singing because singing in a closed space is considered a super spreading event, which kills me as a music teacher. But like there is a little bit of singing, but it's just like led by one person. But they're keeping it short. It's indoors, but it's short.
I haven't heard that terminology yet. Super spreading event. I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. The ACDA, American Choral Directors Association, in combination with NATS, which is the National Association for Teaching Singing, and a couple other choral singing national groups, they came out with a webinar back in late April, I want to say, and some of their preliminary studies have determined that singing is considered a super spreading event. Masks do not help enough. Social distancing of 6 feet does not help and should not be done in public until there is a vaccine or herd immunity, which is devastating to every professional and community choir. It's devastating to high school choral programs, devastating to general music teachers like me. I'm already hearing, not in our area, but like around the country, of some programs being cut because of funding cuts, and they're like, well, you can't sing anyway, it's not safe, so we're just going to cut the program. So like in the worship group, the worship leader Facebook group that I'm a part of, some churches are singing and some are just saying, the worship leader is leading or is singing a couple songs throughout the service for reflection, but they're asking the congregation not to sing. So, and I will say,
yeah.
yeah,
Even that is strange. You're at church, but even at church, here's a list of the things you can and can't do that makes you feel like you're not at church.
Right, I know. And I will say NAFME, the National Association for Music Education, they're working with a couple other national organizations to fund some studies for University of Colorado and Colorado State. They're talking about the safety of instrument playing, but also more information about singing as well. And those studies should be coming out, I think, at the end of this month, if not early July. So hopefully soon there'll be some more scientific information about singing and the epidemiology and all that stuff that's beyond me. So yeah, so I would say for right now, singing should be limited, or the music should be limited to a couple songs. Maybe just have Nicole sing or me sing, or just have the music be instrumental for now. Keep it short and sweet as we kind of figure out this new normal, because this new normal is going to be around for a while, unfortunately.
Yes, I was just going to say that too. And the earlier we prepare for it, the better, because it's not going away soon, unfortunately. But again, we can use it to our own advantage if we're well prepared ahead and we'll do what we're supposed to do. Because there's no point in going to church and not being in church. You want to be there, but then you don't want to start worrying about Harrison. What is it? How is it breathing? How is it coughing and stuff like that? So it's better for us to think ahead and to know the options, to have options.
Has Tayo, is she still, what is she hearing?
Their place, they had, I don't know how many months ago, they had a case or something like that. It was even in the news. And since then, I don't know if she has the best information, the best picture, because where she works, there's nothing going on. It's not in the area where they had that case. But they've had a couple of cases, like somebody who was working in the kitchen who tested positive and left. So she's trying to, how do I say this? I think she's trying to stay focused because the whole thing was beginning to disturb her. To hear that they come home on the news and everything. So she's like, I'm tired of this. I just want to stay focused. So maybe she's decided not to hear what is going on, but around her in the place where she works, they don't have anything going on or new cases. But that could be because she's not working in the area or the section where they have cases. I would have to ask her.
So in terms of next steps, because Aaron, I mean, I'm going off the top of my memory, we asked about outdoor in terms of how we're talking about outdoor on the survey.
On the survey, I put car down there. I didn't, honestly, I did not mean for Amanda to send that survey as is. I had included her in it so she could have feedback. So that, yeah, and I didn't mean for her to like have to recreate it. I was gonna share it with her so she could send it out. Like that was a whole stressful mess, and I kind of felt bad that maybe I wasn't explicit enough. So on the survey, it talks about having a car service where you just drive in and then you drive out. So yeah.
So maybe it's something we should out fillers in terms of this. I would think people would be more amicable because it's basically you're meeting at church as a church. The only difference is you're outside instead of inside.
And we can say
a lot of the advantages we have for inside are things we wouldn't be utilizing anyway, as far as like you having the PowerPoints that people can sing along. Well, we don't want you to sing along per se, you know, and so some of the things that we need for we wouldn't need for the outside. I mean, you still got the access to the bathroom, and it would keep us, I think, a little bit focused too far as on time. We would know, do announcements. We're not going to meet and greet. We still could do prayer as a people. A couple songs led by you or Nicole, instrumental. Message, do offering. Figure out a newer way to do communion, whether it's with the already pre-made, you know, and so I think outdoors keeps us focused too in terms of less, a reminder to social distance. 'Cause my main concern is I just know for a fact that not everyone's on the same page in terms of social distancing. You know, we go certain places and I've been like, you should have saw they had a little cookout and they were just, I'm like, everyone was playing basketball. Like, I mean, and so it's easy to say you're going to do a certain thing when you see people you haven't seen in months. Oh, you know, hello. And so as long as I think if everyone's focused outside, I think that's something that we could definitely start planning towards.
Okay. Yeah, and I think having the bathrooms open, I think that's a necessity. And then if
Have
people
rules
do
cards when you go to the bathroom, make sure we have wipes and all that stuff in there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, a couple of things to consider is for those who still do not feel comfortable coming, you know, we've been pre-recording the sermons and everything and putting them on YouTube. And then we have people who don't have access to that, so we've been making CDs. If we do a service outside, are we going to, one, be able to record to put on YouTube? And are we going to be able to turn the audio into a CD? Or do we need to consider something else for those people who are not able to return yet?
Well,
and I don't know the technology very well to be.
Yeah. So what I'm using, I'm actually looking into a camera. I have a camera that I've been using, but instead of getting a laptop for the technology grant, which wasn't my idea, I got a laptop. I'm looking at a better camera, and so there's a way to just record. I mean, 'cause I think regardless, even if we would return to the sanctuary, regardless of how we were returning, I would like to continue to put out videos because it's been reaching certain people who wasn't even in our church.
Right.
And so the question would be, do we do some type of streaming? Do we do some type of just normal video and upload? Now, the thing is, me speaking in front of a camera in a room where I can control the sound and everything is one thing versus speaking outside when you got the wind or stuff like that. So, and I would hate to have to do it twice, like record a sermon and then preach a sermon. But Definitely one way or another, we will continue to, the good thing is if we're using our equipment, if we're gonna use the normal equipment, which we have used outside before, then of course you're recording the audio automatically. The question is there a way to run video? I know there's a way, I don't know how to do it, but someone knows. So you run video through that same equipment, because then it picks it up a little bit different than if you were to have set the camera up and I'm picking up the mic off the camera. I'm not sure how that would work outside. It's a lot better if we run that mic through the system. And people at our church know how to do that. I think Ron, or maybe your husband knows, who knows, or at least Gary. I'm in contact with Gary Dobbins. We talk, so he would know how to do that. Could we definitely want to continue to do that for those who can't? Because I know Carol, Vernell, people like that, they're on lockdown in their facilities. So people like that won't be able to return. So I normally do 3 Sundays, and then I record those 3 Sundays and put them on. So I've been giving them the CDs. I've taken CDs of Sister Leah, Carol, and Vernell. Every 3 weeks, they get like a batch of CDs. But we definitely want to make sure we're still ministering to those who won't be able to return for physical reasons or just don't feel comfortable.
Yeah. And I think if we're able to do something like Facebook Live or YouTube Premiere or whatever, I think, you know, that can reach a larger audience as well. Which I think is good, because then if you have people who are considering, you know, attending the church, they can get a little sneak peek by checking out a service on Facebook. Excuse me. And I can inquire and look and to see licensing wise for music, if we're going to be including the music in that, as in, you know, in whatever we do. I think there is a different licensure that we need. So I can look into what would go into that. I can maybe ask Marquito, or if Nicole is in conversation with Marquito.
They talk every day just about.
Yeah. So maybe she can ask, like, licensing wise, what does your church do in order to be able to perform on Facebook or YouTube or have those videos go out? So I just want to make sure whatever we do it kosher.
Yeah. And the Facebook Live, that definitely works. I mean, I was not a big Facebook Liver until this time. So that's part of what God is doing. He's getting us to think outside the box, you know, so taking advantage of social media, taking advantage of these. So there's a program I use that allows you to Facebook Live with multiple people at the same time. So like we can have multiple people on the screen at the same time. So my best friend and I use that to do discussions on Facebook Live. And so there's definitely a lot of stuff out there. And the beauty of it, that technology grant we got, the person who contacted me is saying, hey, we know that when you applied for the grant, you had these certain needs in mind. If things have changed, feel free to reallocate that money to other technologies you didn't think about before. So maybe as we're thinking about this outdoor thing, we need to be thinking of what type of technology allows us to best pull that off, whether it's, I had already said, instead of getting a laptop, to probably get a video camera and some iPads, or at least one iPad. For one, there are some people in our circle who maybe if they want to watch videos, not just hear the audio, you upload the videos to the iPad, and then you loan them out to them, like the Vernells. They take it for a week, watch the videos. And the iPads are great for doing Facebook Live, better than like the little phone, stuff like that. And so that's something we should definitely look into. What technology will we need to pull off the best outdoor service? Maybe even inquire, is a tent part of technology? Like, we got a tent that you can plug in. That's technology, you know? So it's like
Yeah. So the question is, if we want to do an outdoor service, when do we want to start? I will tell you, we are going on vacation, and we will be gone June 28th, and I know we're driving back on the 4th, but that's I don't think we'd be able to be there on the 5th. I mean, and that's just me, you know, and so I don't know like what all we want to plan for music and everything. But I know that the 28th we're out for sure, probably the 5th as well.
Well, that's great that you said that. I mean, the only thing, and like I said, I'm not going to over spiritualize it, but the only thing that resonates to me was the second week in July. Because I think we still need some time to set a date, and then once a date is set, it's easier to prepare the people for the date. What are the things we need to do to prepare for the date? That's just my thought. Versus next week or versus the week after. I mean, I don't want to prolong it, but at the same time, if we could just set a date, I think that puts people, a date will put people at ease.
Yeah.
And then we can begin to ramp up some of the Zoom stuff, some of the cleaning, some of the prep stuff, that people can get galvanized around those things. And maybe even if we want to, if there's a way to do a fellowship before service, that where people can just see each other, maybe grill some food, still practice social distance, that kind of works us up to the service. Maybe a Saturday or something like that, or something like that. But I think getting a date gives it some, it would change people's mindsets. And then we can work towards doing that.
Yeah, I think it would put people at ease, because I've been in like the state of like unease and restlessness. Like, okay, if ever are we gonna meet again?
Yeah, so it would put people at ease, and then as a pastor, I could then begin to give some clearer encouragement in terms of, here's what we should be doing as a church for this date. Here's what we need to ramp up. It would give my preaching some clarity in terms of, now that we have a date, start reaching out, start doing these things, start preparing for these things, but also making sure we're getting a clear protocol in terms of what the social distancing is going to look like. In terms of, I know, like you said, Amanda received those masks and the shields and the hand sanitizer. So all those things, getting a clear plan technology-wise, getting with Gary or Ron or whoever technology-wise, and say, okay, how hard is it to bring the one wire from here, to bring these speakers here to here, all those things. Looking into the park, maybe the park is the option. I mean, it would give us time to figure out what are the best options, and then go from there.
I have a question now. I don't know what we think, even though it took us a while to get all the survey back and all that went with it. What do we feel, or what do we think about a second survey, putting in specifically dates that we're thinking of?
I think it takes so much time and effort. I feel like we are a church that does a lot of surveys, and then we do another survey because it's been so long since we've analyzed the data. And I just think we need to put a date on it, and it is what it is. And I think, if we're looking at almost a month out, if you're looking at the second week of July, that's a month, that's July 12th. So that gives us enough time to plan, because I feel like if we do another survey, then it's gonna take 2 or 3 weeks to get data back, and then having the time to analyze it and then plan. I feel like we're not gonna even start until August. I will say, just looking at on the governor's Back on Track Indiana plan, stage 5, which is the last stage, starts July 4th. And starting today, June, or stage 4, masks or facial coverings are now technically optional. Now, I think in St. Joe County, they're still required due to our health officer, but I want to throw that out there. Stage 5 starts July 4th, which pretty much means everything is back open. And if we're waiting until July, the chances of having hotter and more sunnier Sundays or mornings is going to be higher. So whether it does give us a month to look into different options, whether it's we find a big tent and see if we can get it to stay down on the concrete, or we just ask people to bring umbrellas and socially distance. I don't know. But it gives us time. And then we can say, hey, we are going to reopen July 12th. More information will be forthcoming. Stay tuned.
Yeah, and we can also add in that the reopening is probable outside. I mean, I don't want to catch them off guard on that, because they're going to start to re-envision a certain thing. And what we could do is put out some fillers in terms of how to get tents. I mean, there's resources out there in terms of, I mean, I just put it on Facebook, and I get like a whole bunch of people saying, you can, because if we're a church and we're just saying, hey, we're trying to do this the right way, people are going to jump all over that. And so who knows what's out there. So I think it can be pulled off safely. It gives us that visibility outside as far as really reaching out across the street to the complex. And I think that's going to be important. Because one thing I'm thinking is, as I'm praying about this, one thing, and it's not to bring up, open up old wounds, but as I was just thinking about Sister Betty's passing, as a pastor, one thing that reminded me of is the harsh reality that since we have an older congregation, we need to be thinking about how do we grow the church and get younger also. I mean, from a practical standpoint, I mean, that's just a practical conversation. And so I think God can uniquely use this time to get us to think of outside the box, to creatively get out in the community, to reach out and draw people to our church. I think outdoor service is definitely one of those ways to do that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's just a win-win situation.
Okay. So I guess one of the next steps is figuring out the technology, because we need to figure out how to project sound. I know you have a sound system, but will that work for live music? If you want to have Nicole sing or me sing, and if we have music, I know the church has a keyboard. I think there's an amp, because when we were down in the basement, I think there was an amp. I don't know if that was the church's or if that was Brian's. And then we have to figure out drum set or guitar, or do we just use cajon? Do we just use one portal instrument, piano or guitar? And then we have to figure out how to record that. So
it's a lot to figure out.
And unfortunately, when it comes to sound technology, I am of no help. I can play not whatever, a lot of stuff, not whatever, but like the technology part is not my expertise. So
well, I'll talk to Gary Dobbins, because I and Sue, we start to reconnect more recently, and so I know he knows a lot of that stuff, and so and I'll talk to even my best friend. They do a lot of outdoor stuff. He's a DJ, he's a pastor and a DJ, and so he knows as far as how to take the church from the inside to the outside. And I'm pretty sure, and I know even Marquito, because they set up all the time. They do stuff outside of the chocolate factories. He'd be a good resource. And so there's people in our circle that I think we could do it well. It may be a stripped down version, just a keyboard, cajon, or something like that, which is all you need. I mean,
cajon, acoustic guitar, and one person singing. It doesn't even have to be a keyboard. I mean, we have one, but we can switch off. Or and I was just looking at the Facebook group for worship leaders that I'm a part of, and a lot of people are doing like 12 feet apart from each other. Like the musicians are doing 12 feet apart from each other because of singing and stuff like that. So, if we have too many people up on stage, then you've got to really worry about social distancing and stuff.
We don't have a lot of people on stage anyway, so that's not a problem.
No, true, yeah.
And then I'm not sure if you were on when Bev was talking about sharing. and she was, well, Bev, you can mention what Sharon was saying.
Yeah, she's just in Joan's place too, in Tayo's, that she feels both a responsibility to her work constituents and the church constituents, that she, especially thinking indoors, she isn't comfortable coming back yet because she wouldn't want to carry anything either way, you know. So she
Yeah.
feels like it's her responsibility to just not come to church
Yeah.
in an indoor setting at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and I get it. And a third of the respondents said that they were gonna wait a while to come back. Now, granted, we sent that survey out a month ago, so opinions may have changed as more is reopening in the county. And from like looking at the data, like we definitely have ups and downs in our county, but I feel like those ups are still getting a little bit smaller each time we have one. But
And I
we're
think the
still-
outdoor, I think that's another thing that wasn't factored in too. So I think,
No, yeah, no, because I remember you had sent in a response saying, I prefer not to do a car service, but you're open to an outdoor service. But Amanda had already recreated the survey and sent it out, so I couldn't do anything or change it at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can just say, hey, we're gonna do an outdoor service. More information to come soon, and then we gotta figure out tents versus umbrellas and all that stuff.
then
And what
just
happens
pray.
if it rains?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would have to be a real clear policy, so there's not this do we or don't we thing, you know. And
I think if it rains, we would have to do a car service. You just pull up in your car, and then like Theo's in that tent to protect him and like the sound equipment, and it's either blasted out or figure out how to drive and service to do it.
Yeah, that's the
They
easiest.
go into
That's the
radio.
easiest as far as if you're going to be outdoors. Of course, the continued plans would be in your car if it rains. I mean, but I think just getting people back, they'll be more flexible to do a car service if that was the fallback, not the
Right,
you know.
right.
Yes. Mhm.
And especially if there's an online version of it at some point, so people can still participate.
So
If
we have
they-
a
There'll
month to
still be an
figure out how
online
to
version,
do.
even if it has to be where, if we can't figure out the technology, I've gotten used to on Saturdays recording the message. I mean, I'll just still record the message on Saturday and then preach on Sundays. No biggie to me.
Okay.
And there's a big concern about kids' activities, so this would just be a family event, and the kids would just be with
Mhm.
families, and we'd all be together outside, right? So,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, another thing we'll have to think about, I mean, I think our kids are overall smart, but we are on a busy road and everything. And if we do the service, do we do it in the parking lot, or do we set up in the, on the grass in the front yard so that everyone really sees us?
I
Just making
forgot
sure
we had a
that
front yard. Yeah, I forgot all about. I said, I guess.
yeah, we do have grass. I was just thinking that. We could set up, tents or, the chairs in the front. But then just making sure our kids are safe. So,
Well, you
and-
put the kids on the inside,
yeah. Mhm.
between the sanctuary and so put them. I forgot all about the grass. I mean, so I think that's the answer to the problem. I forgot we got the.
They can
Nice
park
side.
anywhere. What? Oh, it's been so long since we've been at church. I forgot what it looked like.
Just thinking about the parking lot.
Well, because that changed the game then, because then now the average tent can, yeah.
You can pin it into the ground. We don't have to worry about it. Well, we still have to worry about it blowing away, but it's a lot safer to put it on the ground in the grass than it is on concrete.
And then it doesn't take away from any of the parking or anything like that, and so.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
and it's a bigger area than you realize, too.
It is.
The grassy area is bigger than you.
Yeah.
Well, see, look at that. We just figured something out.
Right.
Took us what?
Forget about
I will say Archer is walking now, so he goes everywhere, and he's a troublemaker. So we're gonna have to really find a way to corral him.
it.
Well, we could probably get a set of those used car lot flags to put along the sidewalk just as a visual barrier too.
Yeah.
You know, just the psychological barrier.
So my
So,
son would see those flags like, ooh, flags, shiny, let me
Yeah.
grab. Hopefully I would catch him before then.
I think that would be great. You know, people driving past high traffic areas,
Ah,
you know, hearing the music and the word, and then figure out ways how to engage across the street, whether it's like I said, hot dogs and hamburgers, or just really. I think the main thing is this time is going to cause us to do some things we just wasn't thinking about doing. I mean, that's you know, and I think it's going to be to our benefit, and so.
mhm. Bev, is there some way, yeah, because Kirsten likes listening, like she likes doing church at home and everything, but she gets disengaged really easily because, you know, the sermons are way over a 4-year-old's head and everything. Is there any way to create, you know, like a kids church video, whether that's you or whether that's Theo or Nicole, something that's like, you know, 5 minutes, it's their own video that's a part of the service until we meet again, so they can have something that's like, hey, this is my thing, this is my you know, my little service. I don't know if that's possible.
Of course it's possible.
It's just a
That's
matter
not
of
the real
timing.
question. The real question isn't is it possible. That's not the real question.
Yeah.
The real question is who's going to do it. I mean,
And
it is possible, and with the technology, because I bought some editing programs. I mean, you can do some really cool stuff.
who and how?
yeah.
I mean, I know at my friend's church, they had this thing called Shorty's Time, and it's basically him as a pastor. He just basically takes the same scripture, he's low, calls them up to the stage and does like a 5 to 10 minute sermon. And so it's the same thing you're talking about. And so it's something that I really could do. But what I would do is have them see me when they're used to seeing Bev and Sherry. If there's a way to have them have that level of familiarity, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, whether it's taking like that same scripture and then doing something kids related, or using the lessons that you guys normally we're using on Sundays, and finding a way to adapt it into a little mini lesson for the kids to have their own. And if there's a craft component that can be emailed out so we can do it at home. Because I'm more than willing to do things with her. Like the Easter thing, like she was all about that. We listened to the video, and that's something pre-made. And maybe if there is something that's already pre-made out there, I haven't looked, instead of trying to recreate the deal, maybe they're, you know, with that same company that did the Easter thing, maybe they have other things that we can insert. And then again, it's only just for a few weeks, but if the kids aren't going to be meeting right away, they still need some education. I'm just worried about losing the kids because there's something specifically for them that's to their level. So
Yeah,
What may be smart is if you're talking about 5-minute videos, what may be smart is to whoever to do this, because they don't necessarily got to go with my sermon per se, but it'd be great just to shoot 5, 6, 7 videos at one time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then just.
I'm going to be doing that next month for a virtual creative arts camp that I normally help with. They're doing it all virtual. So I'm going in to that church next month. I'm going to record 5 lessons in one day. You have to plan ahead for that. So I would say either one of us or somebody can, you know, do a bunch of lessons, or that company that did the Easter thing that was so age appropriate and easy for parents to do, if they have more things like that, you know, a short video that we can embed or email out, and then a printable that, you know, Kirsten and I can do it together, I think that'd be really helpful. like right now I'm starting to have her memorize scripture. We're gonna do like a verse a week. And she's oh, Bev disappeared. Oh no. Yeah, she's gone.
Oh,
But huh?
yep, she's gone.
Yeah, but I know whenever we do meet, Kirsten is very excited to share her first memorized verse with you guys.
Oh, that is great. Yeah, I was going to say before Bev left, we should probably put a cap on this meeting. We're going to be at the 2-hour mark. I have not eaten yet, so and now the good thing is, although we're not going line by line on the agenda, we are covering the main things from the agenda in terms of the church stuff is the main thing, like return. I think we're coming up with a great plan on that. Other than that, I know it's just a few other things in terms of the property manager and whether we want Pastor Danny Martinez to send in the video for June 21st. My thing is, I'm not in any rush. I mean, it'd have been cool if it would have happened back in April or whatever, and it'd been cool if it happened in
Where is everybody?
everyone's here. I'm just bringing it. What y'all can't see? Who y'all can't see?
I've lost everybody.
Oh, I'm here, and Bev is back.
I'm here too.
I don't. Oh,
We can still hear you.
Yeah,
I
we
can
can
okay.
still,
see you.
still see you too. Well, I see her. Do y'all see Joan?
Yes, I do.
I think it's my.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay.
Yeah. So Bev, I was just saying that we probably need to put a cap on the time. We're going to be at 2 hours soon.
Okay.
So maybe if we can shift to, I mean, and we basically cover, I think, most of the main thing, which was to come up with a plan in terms of a return.
Yes.
I also want to discuss, do we want Pastor Danny to do the video recorded greeting? And what I was just chiming in that I'm flexible either way. I don't mind if he's saying he can't come until to the fall, to just waiting to the fall for. I mean, I'm not in any rush. I mean, whether I'm officially installed or not, I am who I am, doing what I'm doing. So I think, I mean, if we're not going to be meeting at full capacity yet, I don't see a problem with just waiting until he's available. But
Okay.
that's just me.
You know, we could also, you know, if we're meeting outside, we're not going to have video access anyways. But if you wanted to like record a video, we can always include that in the midweek announcements too.
Yeah, and the whole idea is for him to do his part in the official installment, right? And so
Right.
he would do that, but then would come. Then if he did that, would he not come in the fall?
My thing is that he would just give a greeting from himself, but he would still come in the fall to do the official installation.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then that's cool. Yeah, I thought this was instead. Yeah, if it's a yeah. No, I would say if he's planning on doing that, yeah, I would say keep that, and we can put it in the electronic version to send out to people.
Just a greeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want him to come and not be able to lay hands on you like he's supposed to be able to do.
Like 12 feet, like,
Yeah.
you be trying to lay hands, I'd be like,
And well, most of the rest of the items on the agenda were pretty much just for information, so.
So about the property manager,
Oh, that was a question. Do we want to put the other house in the other property manager? We were concerned about whether the tenant was thinking long-term about staying. That would make a little bit difference on whether we considered more about tearing it down or leaving it. And but the new property manager would go through and give us an estimate on what needs to be done, and they check every 3 months, I think it is, on how things are going. So things, if we got them fixed up, at least the major things, it would stay kept up as opposed to what's happened where it's just gotten worse and worse.
I would say for consistency's sake, I'm not a big fan of having like this over here by this over here by that. You know, whenever you can consolidate, the better. And if they're going to give another updated estimate of, or an assessment of what all needs to happen, I think that'd be important, because once again, one of my desires going forward is any serious conversation that we had at one time, let's revisit those serious conversations and start making plans. And so that's one of the conversations that's been ongoing in terms of what we do with that property. So I think having someone with a new set of eyes who could come in and say, here's the bottom line of here's what you're looking at in terms of bring up the code to bring this to where it needs to be, and here's what we're looking at in terms of if we tore it down, I think beneficial. That way we can start to have this be a year where we actually follow through on stuff that we've discussed in the past.
Yes.
And we've gotten busy life. I mean, so it's not a knock against us, but I think that's going to be an important mark of our church going forward, is that when God puts things on our heart, when we have things on our plate, we take care of those things thoroughly. And then that's one less thing that we have to worry about. You know, we want to be good stewards over that place. And if it's not up to where we would have our family members living in there, we shouldn't be having, you know, so all those things are things I think would be great in terms of, if we're already switching it over here, we might as well be consistent, have that same property manager take over here and give us advice on the other property. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fair.
And it seems like this property manager is a little bit more not letting stuff fall through the cracks and, you know, on stuff. And that's important, because out of sight, out of mind, things when they're happening versus when they get too far behind and things of that nature. And so.
Well, this couple is starting up this new business, and they both have realty backgrounds, so they know what they're getting into, and they're part of a national company. And so we were quite impressed with their vision for how they would do all of this. And they've got, you know, the backing of this bigger company. And since they're starting up, it's to their benefit to do, you know, kind of go over above and beyond on the first few clients to make sure that things go well for their whole company, you know, so.
Yep, you always benefit when you're the first, yeah.
So is there a consensus then that we,
Yes.
Yes.
okay,
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think considering how much the current company has dropped the ball, I don't really trust them. So
I
Okay.
concur.
good. And Aaron, has the safety committee met yet?
we have not met, but I can ask Amanda. I mean, do you want me to lead that as a member of the leadership team? Do you want to have Kenneth Dahlstrom lead that? I mean,
It doesn't matter personally to me, as long as something gets leased off the ground a little bit.
Okay.
so.
yeah. I can send out an email today and be like, hey, can we find a time in the next week to meet?
Yeah, that'd be good. At least if there was a few, I mean, that's a huge undertaking, but even if we could get cameras on the back door, that would be a start. So,
Yeah. see what-
Yeah, I'm sorry. As long as we're talking about the safety committee, something that came up in one of the Zoom meetings online when they were talking about things that we want to do for our church to help out, is there something that we want to think about, like installing or something, like we did the parking lot while the church was closed and stuff. But something that came to me is, I'm thinking it might be a good idea to have a defibrillator on the church property somewhere, just in case of emergency. So if someone needed that it was there.
That is true. I'm sure the prices come down, but I do know that they are quite expensive.
Right. But maybe that's something that the safety committee could discuss. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not on the committee or anything, but.
I don't even know where you go buy one. I know one of my elementary schools just bought a new one, but I don't know if there's a lifespan on them or.
Mm-hmm.
There's evidently a lifespan on the pads that you use, because
Right.
that came up at one at the meeting that Amanda and Susan and I went to.
Right. And I think you can buy replacement pads too.
Yeah. Just looking on Google, the price of an AED varies by make and model. Most AEDs cost between $1,500 and $2,000.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I think one of the things that we have to our advantage is that we do have a number of nurses and people who are qualified to give CPR and chest compressions.
Right.
While it does not replace an AED, defibrillator is hard to say. That's something that maybe once we can figure out a security system,
Right.
we can look into, because I think we only have budgeted $1,000 total for
Right.
security at all. But that is something to look into.
This
Something
is
like that.
unrelated to security, but in terms of our return, I know Nicole was saying that she was pricing those thermometers that they're using to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
scanners.
Scanners. They're roughly around $80. I'm pretty sure that could. I can inquire through center congregations if that falls in new technology as far as safe, and even if it doesn't, for $80, I still think that would put people at ease in terms of, scanning people for, at least we could check their temperature to make sure no one has, and so.
Do you know where she was looking for that? I'm just curious.
I think it was like, I want to say it was either Walgreens or CVS, because she got one.
Okay.
She was able to get one. I think she got one. I'm pretty sure through a grant she got. And I was like, well, see if we can get us one. She's like, well, they're roughly this price right here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say it was around $80. Yeah, but I could check to see if this program, because there is a program for non-for-profits. Because as a non-for-profit, she would get all these different things, face shields, the thermometer. So I can get that information from her to see if we can fill out the paperwork too to get it. That'd be helpful to have during this time. An easy way just to say, no offense, but we need, even
Right.
doors, you still want to.
Well, they do it at daycare. When our daycare reopened, the first thing that she does when the kids come in is take their temperature using one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll check with Nicole today and get that information.
Okay. Oh, it looks like Joan's trying to say something and I can't hear her.
We can't hear you, Joan.
She's not on mute though, which is strange.
Sometimes it'd be an issue on their side. I'm gonna chat her right quick. Whenever you tell somebody you can't hear them, they always turn their camera off and on like that's gonna. Now we can't see you.
Sorry, I'm not being helpful.
She's still trying to say something.
Hopefully she'll type it. Normally what people do is just leave out completely and come back in. It normally works, but it's
I did that and I first came out.
Yeah, I had to do that too.
Oh, that's what she's doing. When in doubt, you press power and start over. That's the answer to all electronics. Shut it off and start over.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, and so once she gets back on and hear from her, we'll see if there's any closing comments because I have not eaten and I'm starting to get lightheaded.
I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you. This has been helpful.
And I still got to get to recording the messages and all that. I forgot all about. I'm like, man, that's right. Today is Saturday. I guess I probably should record these messages. So while she's typing, if she's going to type, are there any other closing stuff that we need to take care of?
When are we gonna meet next? Because we have a lot of details to worry about. Now that we have our target date, we got a lot of work ahead of us. And who's going to do what?
Is next Saturday, is that soon enough?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this time, so next Saturday at 10 a.m.?
Okay.
But if there's things that we can do via email, that way we don't do a two hour and 15-minute meeting, that'd be great. You know, this was, we hadn't met in a long time, so
True.
working on the details of the transition. If you got ideas, chime in throughout the week for if you checked on a tent, or Aaron, could you check on the park just in case? Oh, we figured out the park. We got grass. I forgot we got grass.
We got that.
Hey, we got grass. I don't know why no one thought about that we had to.
Wait a minute. I don't know
We've
either.
not done that. We've not
We
done
have
that
more
before.
concrete than grass. That's why. That's what stands out is the parking
That's
lot.
true, yeah.
Forget about the
The
stuff in
grass?
front.
You're not thinking about the grass. You're just thinking
So
about
maybe
it.
we can check on tents, or just put out that maybe we can get multiple smaller tents or a bigger tent. We'll see. I'll check with Gary Dobbins about the technology, the sound equipment, as well as maybe how we could shoot video and stream also. I'll check with Nicole in terms of this thermometer. And then what we should do for next week is, if you have ideas, if you want to start a document in terms of what our protocol should be, our social distance protocol, let's start working on that throughout.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I think we can say now, when you record your survey for tomorrow, or if you record the announcements for tomorrow, they say, hey, target date is this date, most likely going to be outdoors, more information forthcoming.
All right, that'll
Sounds
work.
good.
That'll work.
We probably should say, if anybody has any input or ideas, it wouldn't hurt to get some ideas from the group too.
That's true. It doesn't have to be a formal survey, but it's if anyone has anything to share, or if you want to put out a request for the smaller tents. If anyone has a tent that they're willing to lend out, and we have to, when you say tent, we have to make sure not a camping tent, but a,
Yeah,
what do you call it?
Canopy.
Yeah,
yeah, the canopy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yes, so
anyone has,
I'll include all those in the announcements, and then I'll make sure they're included in the midweek also.
that'd be actually kind of hysterical to have camping tents out there and then beach umbrellas.
Yeah,
If we don't specify, you know, people bring all types of, like, you didn't specify what type of tent, you know.
Aaron, those would work too. That would be social distancing. I can cover
I
myself.
know. One family per tent.
Yeah, and how many of y'all would fall asleep during the service inside one of those though? Yeah, how do I know y'all really paying attention?
My daughter loves this. She actually just got a teepee tent from a neighbor kid. Let's see if I can. This is
Oh, wow.
and they're obsessed with it, and it falls on them all the time. It's gonna break a window, but doing the teepee
Okay.
tent for the kids.
Okie dokie, so that's the game plan. So I'm gonna close this in a word of prayer, and then we'll put on their assignments, whatever those are, and then we'll reconvene Saturday at 10.
Thank you.
Yes, dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you once again for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for a super productive meeting. Pray that we've been led by your spirit, and that your spirit will continue to lead us as we work out details and protocols and all the technical sides of things, and pray that what we've been in agreement with, that the bulk of the congregation would be in agreement with also, and that there be an excitement, energy, an expectation as we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. But also pray that between now and then, you continue just to have your way in our lives, and we continue to return before the return, Lord. Just be with each and every one, that we can be productive throughout the rest of the day. That we continue to honor you in all we do. We pray these things in Jesus' name and keep us all safe. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes. And eat some French toast. And so for this video, once this recording is uploaded, I'll put it on YouTube, and I'll just email you all the link just in case, if specifically for Aaron, if you want to take notes.
That'd
Okay.
be helpful.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.